Welcome back to Nifty 50 Photographers. In today's video I'm talking about long exposure street photography, particularly trying to create some black and white fine art style photos. Now what inspired me to do this video was after looking at the work of Alexey Titarenko, and let me show you some examples. I was really inspired by the haunting feel of these photos, particularly appropriate as I'm making this around Halloween. Now Titarenko didn't just capture movement. What he's done here is, I thought, something quite unique. As photographers and storytellers, we're used to using aperture to create different effects. You know, we use a very wide aperture when we want to isolate our subject. And what Titarenko has done is he's used shutter speed. And to me, that was a bit of a revelation because I'd never really thought of using it in that way. But he uses shutter speed very effectively to isolate his subject.
I started to do images with the long exposure. I never know what would be at the end of the long exposure because you can't predict the future.
Now, one particular piece of work that inspired me most was his Ghosts in the Street series, which was taken in St. Petersburg during the collapse of the USSR. It was a pretty appalling time for people at the time. There was no food available. You know, most of the shops were empty, and you have these big crowds building up on the streets just looking for something to eat and so on. So one of the things I've had to do is think about the location I'm going to go to. So I've chosen today to go to Manchester because it's a lot more densely populated, and I really needed to have a lot of people in my shots, I think, for this approach to try and work. Now, what I found in taking the photos is I learned a great deal, which actually I really enjoyed. It makes a change to have something that's really challenging and pushes your boundaries. So in this video, what I wanted to do with you is share with you my learning experiences. So if you feel at all inspired to try this kind of technique, then this should give you a jump start on how to try and recreate those photos that Titarenko took. I took a lot of shots when I did these photographs, and frankly, a lot of them didn't work. Let me go through some of the areas I photographed and what I found worked and what didn't. The first thing I would say is, if you want to recreate a photograph like this one, you need a big crowd, and that really wasn't available to me on the day. So I tended to concentrate on photos that were more like these, where there were just one or two ghostly images in there. I tried this location here first by a tram stop, and I tried some very long exposures. It just didn't work. People move through the frame too quickly and are not captured on the image. I then moved to a different location, and let me just tell you about my camera setup before I get any further. So what I'm using is my Sony a7R5, my Sony 24-70 f2.8 lens. On front of that, I'm using a neutral density filter, just a 3-stop filter, just so I can extend my exposure times. What Titarenko did, he generally used a medium format, a Russian equivalent to a Hasselblad camera, and he was shooting at f16 to f22. So I'm generally shooting actually at f8 or narrower. And the thing I'm concentrating on is getting the shutter speed right, and that's really my point number one. Absolutely got to nail the shutter speed to get the right image. So you need to do quite a lot of experimentation, and I found it was pretty much trial and error, and I could get away with my camera being in auto aperture mode, but I was manually focusing. So I would focus on a point. For example, in this case, I would photograph on something like some of the street furniture, like the traffic light post on the other side of the street, pre-focus on that, and then wait for the people to move and take my shot. You will find that your shutter speed varies in different scenarios, and also with the speed that people are walking at. But I got one or two images that I was happy with, as you can see here. So in my next location, I went to a tram stop. I thought that people embarking or disembarking would create a bit of a bottleneck and a bit of a crowd, but actually I didn't Whether I didn't nail my shutter speed correctly or whether there just weren't enough people, I think it's mainly the latter, that I didn't really get the kind of shot I was aiming for. I did get one or two I was pleased with. I was especially pleased with this one, where the two Metrolink employees are sort of captured with a moving tram in the background. Fortunately, at the same location, just behind me was an Extinction Rebellion protest, so a nice crowd of people. So I wanted to use that because I thought that was an ideal situation for this style of photography. And I tried a few different shots, as you can see here. And what I particularly learned from this is when you're setting up your scene, you need a focus point. That can be an inanimate object, or I found what really worked best was a person. So I generally tried to find one character who I thought wasn't going to move, perhaps somebody who was filming the protest or some bystander who was going to stand still and watch them walk by. So having that one person, I would set up my focus on them and I'd set up my composition based around them and then let the sort of ghostly figures move around in front of them. The protest was taking place outside the Manchester City Library, which has a fabulous entrance and some interesting architecture behind it with lots of leading lines and different shapes and geometries that make for an interesting composition. And I really love this shot I got of this guy on his mobile phone with his arm out. He just stood there for minutes with his arm out. I don't know why it didn't get tired and he didn't put it down, but it really helped my composition and I think it really makes the photo. So if you can find people like that, it was for me reminiscent of this photo of Titarenko's where he has the begging lady just sat there right in the center of the and everyone else moving around. And then for my final location, I came to this place where there's some Tudor looking buildings and I thought they would make an interesting backdrop. I don't think I got any great photos here, but I got one or two that were all right and I can share them with you as well. So let me summarize what I've learned. One is you need a focus point, and I think I found that people who are stationary made the best one. The second thing I would say is you need a lot of people, and in some ways the more people the better. So try and choose the location where you will get a crowd, and especially one where it tends to bottleneck. You might find it works very well if you can find an event that's going on or a location such as a subway exit or a theatre or something just as a show ends, a concert venue, something like that. When everybody's coming out, then you'll get that sea of people, and I think you could recreate that fabulous Titarenko shot. The second thing I learned really is shutter speed is absolutely critical, and you will need to try different shutter speeds even at the same location just to cope with how people are moving. And it's one of those things I think that you'll learn with experience, that you can set the shutter speed according to kind of how fast they're walking as to whether it works best or not. I think it would also be interesting to try doing multiple exposures, so like 2 or 3 exposures one after the other and then stacking them together, because I think that could create also an interesting effect here. And then the other thing you need to do is think about your editing process. So I've done some dodging and burning on these photos, and that's really about trying to direct the viewer's eye to static parts in the scene, parts that I wanted to draw the viewer's attention to. So I hope that inspires you to go out and do the same. I hope these tips will help speed up the process for you. So if you have enjoyed this and it has inspired you, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more content like this. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.